to my Google Maps presentation for Education 407, Technology and Digital Literacy. So let's begin. Okay, so as you can see here, the home symbol, I live in Laverne, California, which is where our school is also located in. And if you look at this yellow route here, this is the route to Las Vegas. We usually drive to Vegas and it takes about 4 to 4.5 hours, maybe even 5 depending on how heavy traffic is. So if we follow this yellow line to Vegas, you can see that we pass places such as Victorville, Barstow, Baker, and other places along the way. So here is Vegas. My grandparents live in Sun City, which is an area in Vegas. And here's a picture of my grandparents last Christmas at my house. I love them. They're so adorable. Okay, so then if we go back over to this area right here, this is LAX. And out of all the routes here, I flew out of LAX. So we can look at first this purple route, which is the route to Hawaii. A fun fact is that I've been to Hawaii 8 different times and I've been to 4 islands, but I've only gone a total of 4 times. So right here is Kauai, and I've been to Kauai once, and I have a picture to show. When we were in Kauai, Hawaii, we went to a coffee reserve, and this picture was taken back in when I was in 6th grade, I think, 5th or 6th grade, and I loved it. We actually went back and bought coffee from the reserve to bring back home with us. And they have the coffee at local grocery stores here, but it was just a fun experience to see how the coffee was made. So next we have Oahu, which is right here, and I've been to both sides of Oahu. I've also been to Maui, and then I've been to the Big Island the most out of all the places. And here are a few pictures. This was actually from 2018 when we went. So here are a few pictures of the resort we were staying at. These are when the sun were setting. This was just during the day, kind of like around 1 or 2 their time zone. So about 5 o'clock Pacific Coast time, because Hawaii is 3 hours behind. And it was very beautiful. Here's another picture of the sun setting, and if we zoom in to this picture, this is my little sister and this is me. Alrighty. And then the last picture is of my sister and I paddleboarding at the private beach that was attached to the place we were staying at. And it was more of like a bay than a beach, but it was really nice. They actually had chairs that you were able to bring in the water to sit on, and so those are what you see there. And this is my little sister and I. We were paddleboarding, and we tried to do it together, but we both fell, so that's why our faces are kind of laughing, because we were not that great at it. So yeah. So next if we go over to this tealish line here, this blue line, I also flew out of LAX to go to Punta Cana, but I had a layover in Panama, which is labeled right here. And I went to the Dominican and stayed in Punta Cana, which is one of their more well-known cities in the Dominican. And I went to an all-inclusive resort there, so it was just a very fun time there. I've only been there once. Next, we have this red line here, which was the route I took to Spain. And right here is Switzerland, where I had my layover. On the way there, it was 7 hours, so we ate lunch, roamed the area, and then went on our flight over to Barcelona, Spain, which is right here. So here are a few pictures of my favorite places that I went to from Spain. So here's La Sagrada Familia, one of the most well-known churches in Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain. And when we went in 2017, they were still remodeling it from the outside, but people were still able to go in and look around. And we even went up to the very top, and the view was so pretty. I wish I had my phone out, but I didn't. So I just have the picture of the church. They're estimating it to be done by 2023, but because of COVID, I think their plans have changed. This next picture is from Park Güell, which was where we went on one of our last few days in Barcelona. The architecture in this park was so beautiful. It was one of my favorite places we went to because of how complex yet simple the architecture was. And it actually has been around for ages. And so it's just really cool to see how it still has been maintained in great shape. This picture here was in the FC Barcelona stadium. We actually toured the stadium. It was a great time when we were there. We actually got to walk on the field, and so it was really cool to go and just see the whole stadium. And also there was a museum inside of the stadium, and so we also went there too. So here's a picture of inside, and you have the flags painted on the wall with the emblem for FC Barcelona, FCB. And then here's another picture from higher up of Park Güell. And then it's kind of hard to see, but in this picture here, it's a panorama of the world's longest bench, which was also located in Park Güell. And a fun fact about this bench is that it actually was made for women to sit on, and the way it was formed was that it was formed so that it would be very comfortable for people to sit on. But the material was almost like, it wasn't concrete. It was almost like the material you would have for like tile. Almost. It was very interesting. Like, I thought it was going to be very hard because of the material, but it was actually really comfortable to sit in. Here's a picture of my team the first morning we were in Barcelona. A fun fact is that this female coach here from Barcelona was my sister's assistant coach in college for the past few years. She's a really great coach. So there's that. And then lastly, this was on one of our final days in Spain, and this pool is known for its view, and You can see practically the whole entire view of Barcelona from this pool. It's pretty amazing. It was definitely my favorite pool we went to. On this red route, it will take you back to LAX. The layover in Switzerland was a lot shorter on the way coming back than it was on the way there. So now, if we look at this pink line right here, it's the route that I took to Hungary. We had a layover in Toronto that was about 2.5 to 3 hours, and then about a 9.5 hour flight to Budapest. And Budapest is about 9 hours ahead. And so when we got there, it was afternoon their time, but our time it was very late at night, and so we had to stay awake, which was kind of hard. But I have pictures for almost every single place we went to except Tatabanya because we were there for such a short amount of time and I didn't have my phone charged. It was dead, unfortunately. So I won't have any pictures for Tatabanya, but we'll start with Budapest. So for Budapest, we practically walked everywhere. I mean, in Europe, that's like the custom way of transportation is walking or taking the metro. We rarely were in vans. Even in Spain, like we rarely were in vans, like I was saying. We practically walked everywhere. So on the third day, we walked and saw the Parliament building, which is this building right here. We also went inside of a church. And so I love the aesthetic of this picture, so I took it. This picture was also inside of the church, but this was a picture of the altar, and you weren't allowed to go past this rope, and so I had to stand from a distance to take it, but it was very beautiful. Next is a general view of Budapest. It is in the same area where the church was, and it was very pretty. Next is a picture of my sister and our teammate who went with our whole team to Hungary. And this was on the Marguerite Bridge, which is one of the largest bridges in Budapest. And this was right as the sun was setting. Up next, we went to Eger, and it was about a 2.5 hour drive to get there from Budapest. So here are a few pictures. So for this first picture, I took a panorama because we were looking at a castle in Eger, and it overlooked the whole entire city. So I said, oh, maybe it would be cool to take a panorama. So I took it, and you can see my teammates standing right over there, some of them. Here's a picture of inside of the castle. It was very rustic looking. It's been there for ages, but I'm surprised that it's still standing today. This picture was also inside of the castle, and it had clothing that they wore when they were in this castle. This next photo is of a fountain that was in Eger. It really reminds me of the fountain that's shown in the theme song of Friends. I think mainly because of the architecture, it just looks so similar, and it was very beautiful outside, so I decided to take a picture. And then this was the pool we went to that actually was across the street from that fountain, and this is the entrance. It was also a water park inside of the pool, so that was pretty cool. Lastly, here's just a picture from the main part of Eger, which is like the village area. And it really makes me feel like I'm living a real life fairy tale. It just gives me those types of vibes. And you can't really see well, but there's a McDonald's sign in this picture. And a fun fact is that there's only one McDonald's in all of Eger, and it was right here in this area that we went to. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So next we went to Tatabanya, but like I said, I don't have any pictures for it. But right here is Tatabanya. After Tatabanya, we went to Lake Balaton. Here's a few pictures. At first when we got here, all I really thought it was a beach because of how the water was and the view, and there was still sand. So I was shocked to hear that this was a lake. It's huge. Here's another picture of the lake from up higher. Very pretty. We actually went inside of the water and it felt really nice. And then we went back to Budapest and stayed in a hotel overnight and then went home. So, if we go back on this route again, back to the US, which, by the way, I have all the dates of when I went to Europe listed in the places I have traveled to box. So now, if we go and look at LAX again, last February, I actually went with my team to Minnesota for a tournament. So here's the route. It took about 5 hours to get to Minnesota, and we were on a red-eye flight. So when we arrived in Minnesota, we ate at this cafe kind of near the college we were at, and then we went to the pool, which is right here, actually inside of their athletic and wellness center complex. So this is a picture of my team inside of the building on the pool deck. It was an indoor pool, which is pretty understandable considering that when we were there, at least it was 33 degrees, and the highest it got was like 39, so it was very cold. We also went to a Timberwolves game at the Target Center, and that was a very fun game to watch. They were actually playing against the Celtics that game. Very fun. And then we also went to the infamous Mall of America, which is the largest mall in America. It was 5 stories, and the first floor had an amusement park built in. I just thought that was very interesting because I've never seen a mall with an amusement park before. And they also have multiple of the same store, like some malls here do, but there you were seeing like 3 or 4 of the same store on different floors. It's not just like your average mall. It was huge. You could easily get lost in this mall because of how big it is. And when we went to Minnesota, it's important to note that COVID was around, but it wasn't classified as a global pandemic yet, and we were still in school. So then we went undefeated in Minnesota, and then we came back home, which is the home symbol here, Laverne. Thank you so much for listening to my Google My Maps presentation. Thank you.